Welcome to the Limitless Entrepreneur Podcast, your weekly dose of strategies and mindset tools to build a business in alignment with your purpose and to get you playing a bigger game. I'm your host, Nicole Lano. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Limitless Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Lano, and we're talking about a topic that I think really speaks to pretty much the entire audience of this show. You all know that I refer to myself as a type A hippie, and the type A ran my life for the vast majority of my life. I was a go-getter. I really believed in pushing. I had this motto of no one will outwork me. I'll just work harder. I'll work harder. I'll get what I want. I didn't like where I was. I didn't like the station that I had in life. I wanted more. Okay, how do I get that? I go hard. I run hard. And I burned out. And it wasn't until I started to incorporate the hippie side, which is the energetics, which is the letting go of that. And a lot of that just had to do with unwinding a lot of that type A personality, not to let go of who I am, but to stop giving my power away to all the things I had to do. And there is this common belief, certainly people I work with run into this all the time, where they think that if they slow down, then business stops. That means if I slow down, then I will make less money. If I slow down, I will get less done. And my guest today is about to disprove all of that. She's going to show you that you literally can have it all. You can have it all. You can have balance in your life without sacrificing your work product, without sacrificing your time. You can have a thriving, successful business without sacrificing your family and sacrificing your values. That you can have it all, and you can do this with simple processes and making some strategic but simple shifts. So I'm very excited to introduce her to you. Her name is Alejandra Marqués Méndez. And she's a beautiful human. So I highly recommend, we're going to tell you how to stay in touch with her at the end of the episode, but I highly recommend you staying in touch with her because she's just marvelous. She's written a book. She's a former so I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio and then I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio and you're probably going to be like, oh my God, this woman obviously knows how to get stuff done. She's a former university criminal law professor, a project manager turned founder of Your Plan A. That's her company now. She is a productivity and balance mentor for entrepreneurs and business owners. And her expertise has been featured in Entrepreneur, Medium, Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, and the list goes on. She's also written a best-selling book, From Burnt Out to Unstoppable, a guide to becoming your most productive and balanced self. So Alejandra, welcome to the show. Tell everybody, introduce yourself, tell them what I missed in there.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me here. It's such a pleasure. And I totally agree with everything you just said. I mean, for telling a little bit more about my background and how I just overcome that burnout. As you said, I was a criminal law professor, a project manager. Now I empower driven female entrepreneurs, not burning out while wearing all the hats, getting rid of distractions, getting rid of procrastination, have more work-life balance, and really create time for the things that matter the most to them. So my insights, as you say, has been featured now in over 300 publications. So I'm glad that the word's getting spread out there because I truly believe, and I have been proving that, and my clients are the living proof of that. You can have it all, and you can also have this work-life balance you always dream for. So I was studying for 2 degrees at the same time, business management and law, while working on 2 to 3 part-time jobs all the time, working on my family restaurants in one of the biggest law firms in Spain, while also learning languages. That's one of my passions. So I learned 6 by now. And I spent a lot of time with my family. That's my biggest motivation, my biggest value, always spending quality time with them, not only time, but quality time. So this is basically what I love teaching. Like, you don't need to dream smaller. You don't need to do less in order for you to have more or more time, because you can just start prioritizing things. And as you say, implementing systems and doing the things in a way that it serves you, that you feel fulfilled, that you feel energized, because what normally happens is that we are living on this go, go, go mindset society, and just feeling like we need to hustle and we need to rush and we just need to work harder, as you say at the beginning. And that was me. That was absolutely me, that type A, goal achiever, perfectionist. And I realized that by reframing some concepts that we've been taught, you can absolutely have it all, feel great about it, and still have huge dreams. Like, I seriously have huge, huge dreams, and I'm working less than ever.
Well, I want to back up just a little bit, because I want to recap that she speaks 6 languages. You were working on 2 degrees, 2 to 3 part-time jobs, still spending time with your family. I want to just bring this down to earth a little bit, because for the person who's sitting there just being like, well, this girl obviously just like is like some sort of superhuman. Did you burn out? Was it easy?
At that point, yes.
Yeah, because I mean, like,
mean,
let's bring that down to earth a little bit, that this process that you've developed came out of necessity, not from a place of, I just get it and you don't. Because I think that that's how sometimes when we give people processes or we tell people that it can be a certain way, there's this feeling from the receiver feeling like, oh, well, it must have been easy for them, and it's not easy for me. So can you talk just a little bit about how you developed this process around how you're able to accomplish so much?
yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for asking that, because it's true. Sometimes we feel like for other people, it's just so easy that once you teach something or learn something, it's not going to feel the same for you. So for me, I absolutely burned out. I was, as I said, studying for these 2 degrees, working 3 part-time jobs, really a lot of pressure on these law firms, learning Chinese, which is not an easy language, of course. And I was that kind of person that always was competing, not only to others, but competing with myself. Like, I needed to graduate top of my class. That was one of the biggest goals that I had, and I did, from both degrees. So you can imagine all the pressure that I had imposed myself. So I reached burnout, and I could feel it in my shoulders. I was being drained. Even the time with my family, I started noticing some difference in there. But then when I started implementing more that balance, because I knew I was good at time management, like, I really dug deep into all the books that I've read, courses. I'm a, how can I say it? It's this self-development junkie. I really love learning everything that
You're
I can.
in good company.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's the best way for us to grow. So I tap into that time management in order for me to do the things that I wanted, playing around with my calendar, time blocking here and there. I even use, before Google Calendar, I was using an Excel, like playing with absolutely everything that I could to see it visually and to keep myself accountable. But then when I start implementing more that balance, taking care of myself, implementing more rest, for example, meditating more, journaling, really start getting more into, as you say, this hippie also version of me, tapping more into that. I realized that I could absolutely be as productive and even more when I was taking care of myself and having that balance, that when I was just going all in after it. So for seeing both sides of the coin and the other picture, when I started implementing more this balance, I was studying for 2 masters now and also working on 3 part-time jobs. One of them was a criminal law professor, the other one project manager, and building my own business. So at this point, I was doing more. That was for me even more important, but I was spending more time with my family. I was taking more care of myself. So at this point, I didn't reach that burnout point. So I've lived both, and I know what's possible, that I made it through it, and I've seen my clients working through it. So it's not something that it just came easy to me. Absolutely not.
So what are the major shifts, like, because what we're the thesis here, the what we're presenting to you is that you don't have to be going all the time in order to succeed. But what do you have to do? What are the priorities? If the priority right now is somebody who is sitting down, maybe they have a limited amount of time because with COVID and the schools and all the things that have happened over the last couple of years, And then things happen, kids get sick, things happen, like all these things. Your kid gets sick now and they have to stay home for 2 weeks or something. You know, all of these things are just crazy where our time isn't our time anymore. So what do you say to somebody who's sitting there saying, I only have a limited amount of time, I have so much to do, I'm trying to grow, I'm also trying to do all the things that just keep the lights on and, you know, maintaining what I have. How do you create space for growth? Where do you start with that process? What are the priorities there?
I mean, you're saying the key word in here, and it's priority, because sometimes what we've been taught or what we normally do is having an endless to-do list. So it's all the things that I should be doing today, even if it is 50 things and you only have this, I don't know, 16 hours a day, because you also want to sleep. That's one of the biggest things that I really want to make sure everybody understands. You need to sleep. Like, I'm not sleeping less than 8 hours per day. And that has been the way I've done it since I started, since I started college. Like, I never sacrifice sleep because I know that's one of the biggest priority in order for me to achieve more during the day. So that's one of the things, like not having this endless to-do list and instead switching it for a priority list. So let's say you truly have to do these 50 things, but you can start playing around with your week and saying, okay, I can batch the different tasks that are similar and work on them on Monday, then batch another kind of task and doing it on Tuesday. And that way it also allow you to get less distracted, not multitasking so much, because every time you switch tasks, it's a huge waste of time. So for me, having very clear what are your priorities and saying if taking care of my kid, it's one of them, absolutely, I need to be there, I need to do the things. And then the other thing, if you want to grow, you need to put the time for it. Let's say I love morning routines. It doesn't have to be 1 hour or waking up at 5 a.m. By doing very small shifts, you can start taking care of yourself in the morning or at nights in a way that you're prioritizing yourself. So for me, that's the biggest shift you need to start doing. It's not only thinking about how many things can I do in a day, but what are those 3-4 things that are really going to create that change.
How do you look at that? Because I have my own thoughts on the making time for yourself, meditating, journaling, all of that. What is your take on that? Why should somebody add that into their routine? Why should it be part of what they're doing?
Well, basically because you cannot just give from an empty cup. Every time you try to help somebody else, every time you try to do something, even if it is for your business or for your family, or if you're on a company for your employee or whatever it is, you cannot do it if you're not completely full, let's say. So let's imagine you starting the day on a rush, like feeling like, oh, I need to deliver this, I need to go there. It's almost the time that I need to get into my job, into my office. And you're already draining yourself just because of that rush, because of that hurry. But when you start your day by really sitting down and say, okay, what are the things that truly matters to me? What are those things that I'm grateful for? Let me just sit down for 5 minutes. My morning routine, it's less than 20 minutes every single day. And it completely shifts your mindset. It completely shifts your mood. And what you really want to start doing is embracing the feeling that you can be good with yourself. Because sometimes we just put everybody else in front of us, always ourselves come to the bottom of the list. And at the bottom of that endless to-do list, when it should be your number one priority. So spending 10, 20 minutes, whatever you have in the morning, just start waking up a little bit earlier. And that way, by prioritizing yourself, you'll be able to help everybody else and you'll feel great about everything you're doing. Because if not, you leave yourself by the end of the day, you never have time for you. And then you feel like, now I need to do all over it tomorrow. But when you really start implementing that morning routine, even if it is small, you feel good about the start of the day and you have a completely different way of seeing things.
Yeah. And I'd like to just kind of illustrate that point. So for you listening, I want you to think about a time where you knew something was going to happen. Maybe you woke up and you're like, I know that we're leaving for a trip, and you've already envisioned how that trip is going to go, and you're super excited about it. And you're like, oh my God, I know, like, I'm going to wear this dress to this dinner, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. It's going to be so amazing. And you wake up that morning and it's like you float out the door because you're so excited, because you're so invested in it, because it changed the way that you showed up all day that day. You know, your flight could be delayed and you're like, okay, but it's not going to dampen it because I know that what it's going to be like when I get there. And it's just, you're able to let the feeling carry you, because you had this story already in your mind that it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great thing. I'm in store for great things. Or when you just knew something was going to work. And now look at it the other way. Where did you ever see that it didn't? Where you've decided it wasn't going to work, where you decided that it wasn't going to be a great day, where you've decided that it isn't going to, maybe it's the last day of the month and you're not hitting your numbers and you're just like, well, I guess it'll just have to be next month. To me, that's kind of what you're talking about, is by spending time on yourself and by focusing on what you're grateful for, by focusing on you for a moment. It does a number of things. One, you're giving that to yourself. It's a lovely gift. You're changing your energy because you're focusing not on what was automatically programmed in your mind of whatever happened yesterday, you continued and you just allowed it to continue and mess up your next day. You're making a choice. You're being intentional about that day, about how you're going to show up and who you're going to be that day, which is more powerful than I think people get that credit for. And the other thing about that is, if you just thinking about your subconscious, if you want more clients, if you want to be able to take on more, if you want these big dreams, if you can't even make 20 minutes for yourself in the morning, do you really believe that you can make big things happen? It sounds like if you can't find 20 minutes, then how are you going to find all the time that it's going to take for you to service all those other clients? How are you going to be able to do that? Literally, your energy, your container doesn't feel like it can hold that. It won't call it in. You will sabotage every opportunity you have. And you're going to wonder why it's not working. You're going to wonder why all the things you're doing are not working. So I love that that's part of it, that you being on your to-do list is an important thing, even in this is your productivity. Like you're a productivity master. That is what you do. And it isn't just about doing all the things that are on the to-do list. It's you first. That's the thing you do every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, that's a non-negotiable. Is something, even when I'm traveling, even if it doesn't matter at what time do I wake up, it's at least those 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes for myself, because it just fills my cup and it creates everything that you just said. It's the mindset, it's absolutely everything that you will be attracting during your day.
And now the logistics of it, when we're choosing the priorities, do you go into that in the book at all, that like we're in your process of how are we choosing the priorities? How are we deciding what is the thing that gets time, and how much are we breaking up? So I'm breaking up my week. I'm looking at my time that I do have. How am I handling something like a day getting knocked out because my kid is home and now I don't have the time to work that I thought I would? How do you roll with the punches? And I guess that's where your priorities come in, but how are you choosing that? And how are you dealing with things like that?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I always like to plan a week ahead. Let's say I really like to see 1 week at a time, obviously having the big picture of the month, the 3 months. Like I like seeing the whole thing, but focusing 1 week at a time. And then if something happens, start switching things around. So for example, last week, I was supposed to arrive home last week, but I just extended my trip from 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So obviously my schedule changed. I needed to adapt, I needed to adjust. But what normally happens is when I see 1 week at a time, it allows me to have flexibility and saying, no, if it's already too booked out, I know it's not possible for me to, for example, just make sure if my kids, it's not at home. I don't have kids, but just following your example. If my kid's not at home, it's at home, then if I'm already booked out, it's really hard for you to switch things around. When I plan is to start establishing these blank spaces that I on purpose keeping them in blank, so I can just switch things around and saying, okay, people get sick also. Like, it doesn't have to be your kid, it's yourself too. So I'm very conscious about that, and I just try to just put everything in a way that I still have plenty of free time for me to play around. And one of the things I always share with my clients is not only think about prioritizing according to the deadlines or the time a task might consume you, but also your energy is really important. It's not the same putting a priority by the end of the day when you know your energy is not high enough than putting it on your prime time and saying, no, this thing really consumes a lot of my energy. Let's make sure I do it when I have the most of it, after your morning routine or after doing something you really love, something you enjoy, because that's when you're going to get the best results. So not only thinking about that, the deadline.
And can you talk about your process of writing your book? Because I think that's an interesting one. That's something that's on a lot of people's, wish list. They want to see, they want to see their ideas in print. They want to put it out there. They want to go through, I think a lot of people want to go through the process of organizing those thoughts, having their process out there, and really having that tangible asset. So to go from that to, because it's a very creative process. So there's both this business aspect to it, and it's a lot like writing content, but there's this bigger picture. It can't just be, oh, I had this idea and I put it out there. There's this outline that you're sticking to. There's this process that you're sticking to. Did you write every day? Was that something to get into and be able to sustain the creative output that you needed to? How long did it take you to write the book? That's a question that I have for you. And then what was that process like? How did you get it done in the period of time that you did it? How did you approach something like a big task like that?
Well, so many questions, and I love that.
Sorry, lots of questions.
I love that. I mean, I'm really happy about how everything turned out with my book. And to be honest, it took me 3 months to write it, and then about 2.5 months to publishing it, like after editing, formatting, and publishing it. So let's say 5.5 months from beginning to an end. And everything started with my mentor, Rebecca Cafiero. She has this publishing school where I really follow the whole process. Like, she has made over 11 bestseller authors by now. So I was like, okay, you know what you're doing. Let me just grab that knowledge. But the thing is, I don't really write every single day because sometimes you're not that creative enough. So for those days that I knew that there was nothing else that will come out, what I started doing was revising what I already have written. So it was like, okay, this is the line that I'm following. This is what I really want other people to understand. So what's the next step? So I started thinking about that. But every single day I did something for the book, even if it wasn't the writing itself. Gathering content, seeing what are those things that was missing on what I already have put in there. And for me, for example, one of the best advice that I could give anybody who's trying to build their own book, to write their own book, first look for someone who knows, as I did, what they're doing and what are the steps, so you can follow an already structured plan, but also get to know yourself. Because for me, I knew that the best time for me to write was in the morning, but the time that I was the most creative was at night. So I always kept my notebook by my bed. And every time that I get an idea, it was just a brain dump of what I wanted. And then in the morning, I sit down calmly and start writing the ideas on the right order.
That's how I am too. In the morning, I have all this energy, but I'm most creative at night, like where it's almost like when my brain knows that it's going to be turning off. It's
exactly.
Like the impending relaxation that's coming. It's like my brain starts to relax, knowing it's going to relax soon. and like, it's really after my kid goes to bed when I know like nobody's going to call my name. Well, not guaranteed, but chances are the least amount of time that's when I can relax. And the weekends are big for me. I'm really creative on the weekend because I don't feel like there's not going to be clients. There's not going to be, I'm not, my family needs me, but like if my husband takes my son out for a little while, I can get so much done in the 2 hours that he takes him to the park. I can get done then what would take me all day during the week. And maybe
Because
I
you're
wouldn't
on
even
another
finish it.
mindset. You're on another mood completely. Yeah.
It's like I give myself permission, like I can turn the phone off. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to be looking at email. I don't even have to have any of that open. Like nothing is happening. And it just shows that it is the relaxation that allows the creativity to come through. It's getting in that relaxed state that is the most important thing. That's the primer. That's the foreplay for creative work, is to get yourself into a relaxed, calm state where your brain is like, okay, now we can play in the squishier space, in the things like we don't have to think about getting anything done. No emergencies coming. How can we create that? How can we create that feeling of safety? The other thing that I wanted to ask you, I'm going to keep using the book as an example, just because it's such a big project. It's such a big undertaking, and it's both creative and has real strategic elements to it. So there's kind of that left brain, right brain coming together for something like that. Do you protect your time around it? Did you make sure that there was time before where you were giving yourself that time to relax? Were you doing that kind of after your morning routine was when you gave yourself that time to write? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was blocking not only the time that I will spend writing, but as you say, putting myself into the mood after my morning routine, after just not paying attention to anything else. It was really that time blocked. And not only for the preparation, for the writing, but also then how I felt about that. Really start thinking about, is this what I want to put out there? Is it going to a next book? Or because you're not really in charge of everything that comes to your mind. So you're not driving that car, let's say, because I got a lot of ideas that I didn't want to put on this book, for example. So I got creative, but it was not for this time. So I needed to make sure not to overwhelm people while writing. So I took myself that time at the end of the writing of saying, okay, is this for this, or is it for another time? And that way you also allow yourself that time for revising. And this also works when you're planning your day, your week, always revising and making sure it still makes sense for you to do that thing. It's one of the best things that you can do. Not only just following a plan because you made it the night before, but actually waking up and saying, does this still make sense for me? Mm-hmm. Is it still aligned with what I'm doing, with what I'm building? So the same happened with the book.
Yeah. And just on that point, that planning the night before, checking in with it in the morning, does this still feel right for me? It doesn't make that night before process less effective, because the whole point, at least for me, and tell me if you think differently about it, but it's getting those thoughts out of my head. So I can go to bed that night, not thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow? Like, that's done. I have just stopped that circling train in my head of thought of what am I going to do tomorrow? What is it going to be? Am I going to do this? How am I going to write that? Am I going to? No, I've decided what I am doing and what I'm not doing. I've put that down, and we allow our brains to relax then. And again, that should be like, I think that's kind of the invisible priority always, is to kind of create that relaxed state in ourselves. And what I keep hearing from you, what I keep getting is this feeling of like, there's always this slowing down. Yes. There's always this slowing down. There's always this like, okay, now we're gonna dive in, but first, is this right? Is this still let me make sure I'm not overwhelming people. Let me take a moment to kind of come back to that higher level view, that bird's eye view, and then come down into the detail, rather than just detail, which that seems like kind of the whole theme of getting out of that go in order to produce more.
Yeah, I mean, for the go, you always want to do it all and do it perfectly and just keep doing more and more and more. And as you say, paying attention to every single detail. When I say I have this big goal in mind and I plan it monthly, quarterly, yearly, but then go back down into a week, because that way it's more handleable. Like you can absolutely work easier on a week that on the big picture. It's not getting lost on absolutely everything you need to do and absolutely everything that's outside. So for me, just that slowing down and having breaks, it's really, really important, because people feel like if they take a break, it's a waste of time. It's something that, no, if I'm not producing, if I'm not doing this, then I'm wasting my time. And it's completely the opposite, because how many times have you worked 8 hours straight and you're like, I cannot do absolutely anything by the fourth hour? Like not even at the 8 hour, but at the fourth hour. So our brains need a break, our body needs a break. We are spending so much time sitting down that it's just a matter of stretching out, going for a walk, drink water. Like I have my glass in here. Every time that I can, I'm drinking some water. And it's that resting, those breaks, that will allow you to keep doing the things in a more focused way. If you're just on the go, 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 you never stop to think if what you're doing makes sense, if what you're doing is not making any sense anymore, or just taking the time to feel how you're feeling, because that's very important. So for example, one of the things I always do when I'm getting into a call, obviously it's not booking out myself, I have at least 15 minutes in between calls, but after having that break, I know I want to give 100% on the next call, so I play really great song and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the mood, let me get into it. It's always recharging your energy, it's always recharging yourself after that break, because it's needed. Our body needs it, our brain needs it. And once you start seeing the results, it's like, okay, I was wasting a lot of time by not taking breaks.
Yeah, well, it's leaking energy. You're leaking energy into something that into the doing, and you're not thinking. It's almost like feeling like anybody could show up to work that day. But no, we want to show up as our best selves, not because that sounds good, but because that's how you get the best output. Like, would you rather have something done right, or do you want to come back to it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times because you didn't get there? You didn't make it. Like, it's you can't go to the gym and every day's leg day. It's you're gonna be burnt out. You're gonna be disproportioned. You're not going to be. You're losing the big picture, and you're not healthier for it. So it's having this well-rounded perspective and having a plan, having a strategy around it. Make sure that you're only working on the things that matter, and not pushing energy into something just because someone told you that you should. Just because that's what everybody else is doing. It's no, is this right for me? Is this in alignment with our goals?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that I really have to switch in my mind, that one of the biggest mindset shift that I had, is redefining what success meant for me, what success looked like, or what is good enough look like. And if I'm doing my best, so one of the things I always say is, your best will look different every single time, every single day. It will look different, and that's okay. We're human beings, we're not computers, and even computers doesn't work the same way every single day. So just try to do your best, knowing that it's not going to be the same every single day.
For sure. No, and I love this conversation. I love everything that you shared, your whole way about you. Like you give this vibe off of like, it's possible. It is possible.
It is.
Because there's a very super ambitious goals and vision with very practical applications, which is kind of the name of the game on this show. So I thank you for sharing all of this with everybody. I thank you for coming on the show, and tell everybody where they can stay in touch with you. Where can they learn more about you? Where can they get your book? Tell everybody all the things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. It was really a pleasure. Hope everybody listening has enjoyed as much as I did. And you can absolutely reach out to me on Facebook groups. I have a Facebook group, so you can go in there, Productivity and Balance for Female Entrepreneurs. And also you can find my book everywhere in Amazon. So it's worldwide. It doesn't matter where you are, you can find it. It's From Burnout to Unstoppable, a guide to becoming your most productive and balanced self. And if you want to say hi, like you can drop me a message on Instagram and saying, hey, I bought the book or I listened to the episode. I really love connecting with like-minded entrepreneurs and business owners, and especially female entrepreneurs. Like it's really that what I'm passionate about. And I just can't wait to say hi to all of you.
Yeah, it's definitely a club that I'm proud to be a part of. Yeah, and if you listen to this episode, if you buy her book, please snap a little snapshot of it, put it up in your stories, tag Alejandra and myself, and we will certainly share it around with our group and our community. So thank you so much, Alejandra. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for the listener who's here till the end. Thank you for being part of this conversation, for being here with us, for your energy, for your support, for always supporting the show. We appreciate you. And remember, you are only limited by the limitations that you accept. And when you stop accepting those limitations, that is when you become limitless. So go out there and be limitless, everyone. I will see you on the next episode. If you loved this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you want to stay in touch with us, we would love to have you as a part of our Facebook community, Practical Manifestors. It's a community for process-driven women looking for clear and actionable steps to embodying a life of wealth and alignment. Join us at Practical Manifestors in Facebook or go to www.innerceogroup.com.